Hello and welcome to today's web seminar, Bridging the Gap, Test Automation with Test Data on Demand, sponsored by Turnkey Solutions and CA Technologies and featuring Brad Calloway, Director of Sales at Turnkey Solutions, and Jeff Hughes, Senior Product Marketing Manager at CA Technologies. I'm your host and moderator, Josiah Renaudin. Thank you for joining us today. Before I hand it off to the speakers, let me explain the controls on this console. If you experience any technical issues, please send a note through the question field located beneath the panel so we'll be on hand to help as quickly as possible. Our responses can be read in the Q&A panel to the left of the slides. There's also the same way to submit questions. We welcome all comments and inquiries during today's event, so feel free to ask as many as you'd like, and we'll answer as many as possible during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. This presentation contains polling questions, as well as a live demo. To optimize your bandwidth to the best viewing experience possible, please close out any unnecessary applications that may be running in the background. At the bottom of your console is a widget toolbar. These widgets open panels. The console opens with three on your screen: the speaker, Q&A, and the slide panels. All of these panels can be moved around and resized to your liking. If you accidentally close one, click the respective widget to reopen the panel in its original place. Hover your cursor over these icons to reveal labels identifying each widget. Through these icons, you could download the speaker slides and white papers, as well as share this event with friends and colleagues. This event is being recorded and will be made available for on-demand viewing. Once the recording is ready, you'll receive an email with instructions how to access the presentation and slides on demand. With that said, I'd like to introduce and pass controls to Kathy Wells from Turnkey for a brief introduction.
Thanks, Josiah. So welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. We know that you're taking time out of your day to be here with us, so we've put together some valuable content for you. And just wanted to remind you that, as Josiah said, today's presentation will be recorded. We do hope you chat with us. It is much more fun if we hear from you throughout the presentation. Ask us your hardest questions. We're here to answer them. If we can't answer them, we will get back to you with answers. And if you think of something later, no problem at all. You can contact me. My email is right there. You'll also have contact information in follow-up emails. You can also give us a call, and after the webinar, as Josiah mentioned, you'll receive an email with a link to the recording. The recordings will also be posted on the CA website and on the Turnkey websites for future viewing. And let me jump into the agenda. So today we're going to talk about two really key areas in application quality, and that is test automation and test data. And from our viewpoint, test automation without any test data to feed it doesn't provide you any value whatsoever. It's just test automation. Test data without a test automation framework also doesn't provide you any value. So being able to marry the two and bridge that gap is of ultimate importance in application quality and delivering DevOps initiatives. We're going to talk to you about some best-of-breed answers here, which are test automation best-of-breed and test data management best-of-breed through Turnkey and CA solutions that create an end-to-end closed-loop solution. And we're going to share real results with you. So we're not just talking about our products, we're talking about what real organizations similar to yours are doing and what they're seeing as a result of that. So let me introduce you to your two presenters today, Brad Calloway and Jeff Hughes. I'll let you read a little bit about their experience on the slide there while I tell you a little bit about who they are. So Brad Calloway has been with Turnkey for about 7 years now. And a fun fact about Brad is he used to fly ultralights, or as he describes them, a lawnmower with wings. He flew them for about 10 years. And what I really want to know, Brad, is where's our corporate ultralight?
It only fits one person, so it might not do as much good.
Oh, we'll put our CEO out on the wing then. He can fly on the wing.
I agree with that.
And Jeff, yeah, Jeff Hughes. It looks like it's going to be Brad and I are here in Denver, Colorado. Jeff is in Texas, in the Plano area, and it looks like it's going to be 90s all week and sunny there, so a little bit hot. Jeff has traveled to every state in the United States, and many of us travel for business. I have traveled my entire career, and I can tell you I have not hit every state in the United States, so I think that's pretty great. In addition to that, Jeff has authored a couple of books, so maybe, Jeff, you can send out some signed copies.
Okay, they're kind of old now, but sure.
All right, so those are our two presenters. You're going to hear from Brad and Jeff throughout the seminar or throughout the webinar here, and I'm going to kick it over to Brad to kick it off.
Thanks, Kathy. Just to get started here, we're going to take a look at test automation. What are some of the features that we want to or want to have when we're talking about a test automation framework? We'll talk a little bit about test data management. How do we mass data? How do we synthetically create data? And then we're going to bring this all back together and talk about how do you marry test automation with test data management. Every organization I've worked with over the last 10 to 15 years has struggled to a certain extent with, automation, if you will, or just testing in general. One of the problems is a lot of times they don't even know what their end-to-end business processes look like. So how do we document those? How do we determine what test cases we need to execute based on the changes that we're making to our application? If we have automation all built, do we have the data necessary to actually run our tests? And if I have the data, how do I feed that data into my test automation framework? So that's kind of where test data management comes in. And everybody understands that we never have enough resources. We never have enough time to automate or test everything. So with the best of breed set of tools, you can really minimize the amount of risk that you're taking on by increasing your automation coverage, by making sure at the start of a testing cycle, you'll have all the test data. And then we want to integrate those two so that we have the best of breed solution where we can generate data, we can feed that data into our test automation, and we can run our test cycles as needed. So the way we look at this, let me get the screen. Come on. There we go. Apologize, new at the controls here. So what do we want in an automation solution? We want something that's application aware. So as my application changes, I don't want to have to go dive into code to identify what's changed in the application. I want technology to do that for me. So I want the ability to look at an application, identify what's changed in the business process, and automatically update that automation. The other thing that I want to do is I want to bring along the data as well. So as my data needs change, I want this application aware to identify what additional data that I need. And we can do this through test data management. We can synthetically create that data. We can go find it in a test environment. We can just go find it and automatically feed it to our automation framework. Turnkey does provide a patented, what we call Evergreen Automation that provides this type of functionality for us. We can look at any application, identify how it's changed, automatically update the automation, and also identify the new data needs that business process requires. So what does this overall solution looks like? Really what we're doing, as Kathy said, is marrying functional test automation with test data management. Now each on its own has a lot of value, right? The ability to automate the tests that we need to run to ensure application quality is very important. Even if I had to manually enter all the data, it would still provide a high level of value. Test data management, right? Some people have some homegrown tools. Some people just do masking. Some people are doing subsetting. Fewer people are doing synthetic data generation. That's valuable by itself as well. But when we marry the two, we really provide, a high ROI on, the time it takes to go ahead and automate the regression test cycles for any specific application. So what we're going to see today, and there'll be a short little demo after we run through both our test automation slides as well as test data management, is how all this works together. You're going to see how we build and support automation. You're going to see how we tell the test data management solution what data we need. You're going to see us define data acquisition rules to go into a test environment to identify test data, as well as how we synthetically create data, and then how we pass that back to our automation framework. And we will see that at the end of the session today.
Great.
So Kathy,
Thanks,
I'll go
Brad.
ahead and hand it to the question. Sure.
Yeah, so our first polling question is designed to help us understand who you are, those of you who are spending an hour of your time listening to us. We want to make sure that we provide valuable content to you. So if you could help us out with what you're looking for in today's session, test automation, test data, both of them working together. And while you're taking that survey, many of you may be aware of Gartner's annual CIO survey. Recently, in their CIO survey, they found that just 35% of those surveyed thought their company was following a strategy that differentiated it in the market. That's pretty tough because the IT strategy has to support that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and the key areas that can help you with that today, which really is application quality. So given that, let me go ahead and publish the results here. I need to click next. Again, new at the controls. So looks like most of you are looking for both working together, and that's exactly what we want to address today. We understand the value of having test data on demand while you are creating your test automation, exactly the right test data to consume at the right time. So with that, I will turn it back to Brad Calloway.
Thank you, Kathy. Again, I think you and I both hit the next button, Kathy. Okay, thank you so much, Kathy. So, this is a graph that I always bring out and I always talk to with our customers. And it's really the problem we're trying to solve from a test automation perspective. There's a lot of automated solutions out there. Each of them, when I create the automation on the given version of an application, that automation is going to work great. But what really happens as we go through several changes? And typically what happens is the usability of that automation decreases rapidly, both from an automation perspective as well as a test data perspective. So Turnkey with its Evergreen Automation really solves this problem. Our solution is application aware. As the application changes, from a functional perspective, we can analyze the application, identify what's changed, and automatically update it. We're going to do this from the way in which we process a business process, as well as the test data needs for that business process. And it's one of the real value adds that our solution provides. What we see with our customers is that we drastically increase the amount of automation coverage, as well as decrease the amount of time it takes to maintain those test cases. So you'll see here some fun facts here. We typically see about an 80% increase in test coverage, and we do this a couple ways. One, it's easier to build automation. We also offer a high amount of reusability. So we're an object-oriented framework, so we only change a specific object. Any test case that uses that object would automatically be updated as well. Maintenance savings, this is this Evergreen Automation I was talking about. We can identify what's changed in the application, automatically update the automation, and then also identify those data needs that might change. And we usually see a 5 times return on our test cycles. So what used to maybe take 10 weeks is going to take a couple weeks. We also see a reduction in the number of resources that need to be required. You can see that Blora has posted, or identified Turnkey as one of the best of breed test automation solutions. It's important to note that Turnkey also has specific solutions for many of the packaged applications out there, whether that be SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, Workday, but then can also test your custom applications as well. One last slide before I hand it over to Jeff. When we talk about time, cost, and quality, it's really what every organization is facing, right? We only have a set amount of time. We only have a certain amount of budget, but we're all expected to deliver our high quality application. So with Turnkey's automation solution, we address a number of different areas. One is test management, a central location for all our test assets, the ability to quickly create test automation using our application called cFactory, which is built on top of either UFT or Selenium, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. There's Evergreen Automation, which is the ability to identify how your applications are changing and automatically update your test cases with it. And then test execution. We have a data-driven framework that obviously is integrated in with a test data management solution to stay on top of your data needs for your test cases. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Excuse me, one last slide. Just a case study that we did with one of our customers at Turnkey. The customer is Almac. It's a pharmaceutical company located over in Ireland. And really the main thing I want to point out here is they used to do all their testing manually. And it typically took about 20 people to run through the regression test cycle. They've implemented Turnkey over about a 6 to 8 week period, and they reduced the number of resources to about 2 people, and the testing cycle went down from 3 months to 3 to 4 days. Almac right now is in the process of evaluating the test data management solution that we'll be demonstrating today to even further increase their ROI in tackling the large upgrades that they do every year. So one last thing, I've covered it, a couple times now, but Turnkey does offer Evergreen Automation, and it's just the ability to identify what's changing in your application and automatically update any and all tests that are associated with that change. And it really provides the ability to continuously test your applications and also identify the data needs that may be changing as your application changes. So
Great, thanks,
I'll hand it
Brad.
over to Kathy.
Yeah, this is what happens when you work with smart people. They get ahead of themselves. Us marketing people tend to slow them down with more slides. So this is a polling question for the audience. How do you manage your functional testing today? Do you do it manually? Do you have a mix of manual and automated? Or do you already have a test automation framework in place? And while you're filling out that survey, we've all heard of the PR disasters around companies like Starbucks, Hershey's, Royal Bank of Scotland, and all of these were related to ERP problems that got through because of lack of testing or not testing the right functions. So you may recall Starbucks was not able to process transactions for an entire afternoon. Hershey's was unable to fulfill chocolate orders during their peak season, which guess when that is? Valentine's Day. That would have been rough on them. And the Royal Bank of Scotland was unable to make or receive payments for several days during a key pay period. So, just imagine not only the PR disaster that goes along with that, but the amount of money that these companies lose. Now, your stakes may or may not be as high as those, but regardless, I can tell you that even if we all love our 15 minutes of fame, we probably don't want it like that. I'm in marketing, and I can tell you there is such a thing as bad PR. So let me go to the results of the survey here. And it looks like most people have a good mix of manual and automated testing. So that's great. We'll take that into account as we move through the presentation and make sure that we continue to tailor the presentation to this particular audience. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Hughes from CA, and he's going to talk about test data management and share a little bit about Test Data Manager from CA. Jeff.
Okay, well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Brad. I'm going to continue the conversation around the component that CA technology provides, and that is the location or creation of test data. So as Brad mentioned, it's kind of a two-sided coin. We have a partnership with Turnkey, and they're providing test automation, and we're providing the ability to deliver the data that you need for testing. And at the end, Brad's going to show you a demo of how we work together. But I wanted to share with you just a few slides on a few topics around test data. Why worry about test data? Companies are now starting to take a more careful look, a closer look at the kind of test data that they're using, especially when they pull it from production environments. That's because of the compliance issues. Kathy talked about these different breaches that occur, and so compliance and security are now a big issue around using test data. There's a productivity and efficiency issue, so if you can't locate the right data, that slows you down. It slows testing teams down, and they can't deliver applications in a timely manner. And then there's the customer satisfaction and quality issue. If the applications are not tested properly, meaning you don't have the right data or you didn't test with data that was really going to break that application, and put it through its paces before you deliver the application out into production, then there's all these quality and customer satisfaction type issues. We've all encountered mobile apps that don't quite work. I was on a online trading app last week, for example, and I went to a certain screen and I wanted to look at a certain option, and it just bounced me right out of the app. And I thought, well, maybe that's an anomaly. I logged back in, and the same thing happened again. So my confidence level in that application kind of plummets at that point, and I think, wow, I don't know if I'm going to keep using this app because it's not working too well. And it was from a highly regarded company. So the importance here is testing with good data and testing with data that has the outliers. Those pieces of data that are actually going to break the app is what's needed. And then there's the skyrocketing costs of storing data. As you copy production data into multiple locations, you have to store that data and also protect it. So there's a lot of concern around test data. So we have a product called CA Test Data Manager. I'm sure many of you on the call are probably familiar with the tool. This is our test data management tool. We acquired a company by the name of Grid Tools back in 2015 and bought this product, CA Test Data Manager, and another product, CA Agile Requirements Designer, in that acquisition. Now, the beauty of this product is it does a number of things. So from a very high level, it does data discovery, it does data subsetting and masking, and synthetic data creation, and the ability to build test data on demand or locate test data on demand. So from a discovery standpoint, we can look at the existing data that you have in your environment. We can scan your network and give you a mapping of the data that you currently have. And then we can help you identify sensitive areas where there's gaps in the data. Maybe you need to fill in that data with synthetic data, or locate data to help with a particular test. We also can eliminate manual data creation. We understand companies can't necessarily eliminate all manual data creation, but we provide the ability to create synthetic data. So if you're missing data, if you want to generate millions of rows of data, Test Data Manager can generate that data extremely fast. Now, in the case of Turnkey, they are making requests to us for particular data, certain types of data that they need to fulfill that request. And so we do data matching where a certain test request comes in, we provide the exact data that you need to test, and then the testing can go forward. And Brad's going to show you what we're talking about here in the demo coming up. And then the last thing there is the test data on demand. Maybe you have multiple teams that need to access the same data. Oftentimes this results in a conflict because the same data is being used by different groups. The data gets burned up, as we say, and then it has to be reset so that it can be used again. And so those are challenges that companies have. And again, that adds delay in getting applications tested properly and into production. And so these are really three key areas that we provide for CA Test Data Manager. This is just another example here of advanced test data management as a center of excellence for Agile teams. Our message to companies is that you can become Agile. A lot of times when I'm speaking with customers, they'll tell me that they are moving towards Agile. Some of them are still, a lot of them are entrenched in waterfall. Some of them say, well, I'm Agile fall. I'm kind of, in between the two. But our message is that testing is one of those areas that you're going to have to automate. And we're helping, through our partnership with Turnkey, CA and Turnkey are helping companies to become more agile as it pertains to the testing process. And again, in the middle of the slide here, it just shows the profiling coverage. You see in the blue box there, you can fill in the data gaps. You can share and reuse data through versioning. We have an allocation and reservation system, so test data, can be delivered to those different teams in your organization, and we can provide parallel and on-demand access. In addition to the warehousing of data and the synthetic data creation, we also provide the standard subsetting and masking of data. And again, we recognize that some companies walk a fine line. In some cases, they need to use some production data, and they'll have to mask and subset that, so we have the tools to do that. And then also, they want to start using synthetic data. We see this as a transition over the next couple of years, that many companies will move towards using more synthetic data creation than simply using production data. But it's going to take time, and it depends on the applications that you're building. All right. Let's see. I advanced the slide. I went too far. Let me back that up one. I see a little bit of delay. So just a couple of brag slides for us from CA. Using Test Data Manager, we've seen a 90% reduction in the time needed to generate data. We've actually gone out to companies and seen how they've gone from 3 weeks to create test data down to 1 day. We've seen companies go from several days down to several hours to create test data. The cost savings are significant. I know that that's hard to quantify, but there's cost savings in data storage. There's cost savings especially in the amount of time that is spent in generating that data. And so you can be having your resources applied to different areas than having them spend time just generating test data. And so those are 3 of the key areas there, and I'll advance the slide here. And this is one last slide. On the left there, we are the leader in terms of surveys that are done with IT Central Station. I know that graphic's a little hard to see, but if you go to IT Central Station, you can see some reviews on Test Data Manager. 91% of IT organizations agree that TDM generates test data more quickly and saves them countless hours of time. We've done some surveys on Tech Validate. So if you go to techvalidate.com, you can see some of these great quotes for test data management. And then finally, Forrester did an ROI study, and they basically took 4 companies, these were real companies, and they merged them together in sort of a one synthetic type of company, and they put it through its paces from an ROI perspective. What could TDM do for that company? The results were 287% ROI, 6.9 million in cost savings benefits over 3 years. And I'll remind you, if you're interested in ROI type of information, we have a calculator on ca.com that is specifically designed for TDM that can give you some specific ROI results for your company. So that's just a brief overview of Test Data Manager. And with that, I will pass it back to Kathy.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeff. That's really great. And here's our last polling question for you, I promise. How do you currently get your test data? Do you have a test team that manually builds it? Do you have a tool that grabs it from production and masks it? Do you have a tool that generates data from scratch synthetically, or is there another way that you're doing it? And while you're filling that out, I just want to reiterate a little bit about what Jeff was saying in the ROI story that Forrester put together with 4 different companies. You can find this document on the CA website. It's called the Total Economic Impact of the CA Technologies Test Data Manager Solution. The composite organization that they looked at 4 different companies and created a composite organization of 16,500 employees. So this may or may not match your organization, but that gives you an idea of the typical kind of organization. They invested $2.4 million as a composite organization into CA software and services, and they received cost savings and benefits of $9.3 million. As Jeff mentioned, that's an ROI of over 287% in a payback period of 6 to 7 months. That's pretty impressive. And that's test data. So when you think about test automation and test data, marrying them together, the ROI between these two, it's really what technology is built for. That's why the ROI is so high. This is what technology can do for you, take the tedious out of your hands and allow people to get back to the things that are higher value than the tedious writing test scripts or creating test data. So let's go back and see what the polls look like. And it looks like most people are manually building their test data, and a decent percentage are also grabbing production data and masking it. So that makes sense, and I think we see that across a lot of organizations. And so we'll take that into account as we go forward here. We're going to be diving into a demonstration of the product after Brad Calloway hops back on and talks a little bit about the combination of the tools.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So shortly we're going to get into the product demo, but this is just a slide that kind of provides an overview of what the integration looks like. Turnkey provides an application called cFactory, which is our really our development platform. It's how we build and support automation. And once we assemble our test case, what we're able to do then is to send that information over to two of CA's products. One is Agile's Requirements Designer. This is where we can really model out our business process. And then also Test Data Manager. And Test Data Manager is where we're going to define our data acquisition rules. And once we do that, then we're able to export that data and send it back to Turnkey and populate what we call our data sheets so that we have now test data that we can actually run our automation with. So this is going to work for both your custom applications as well as your packaged applications. You can see several up there that we support: SAP, Oracle, PeopleSoft. And Turnkey's data management solution is also data-driven. So we get the data from CA's Test Data Manager, but with our automation framework, we actually drive our test by the data that we provided. So I can have a single test case that goes through multiple different paths based on the data that I provided, and the integration between Turnkey and CA provides that. And so this ability really streamlines your automation process. Instead of creating a different test case for every different type of requisition, for example, that I might need to create, we can create a single test case and test all the different iterations. And as my business process changes, we identify our additional data needs, make a call out to TDM once again, or Test Data Manager, and we can go grab the new data that we need and populate our automation as our application changes. So that's a general overview of the solution. So now let's go ahead and dive in. Just a little bit about what you're going to see. It's going to be a bit abbreviated, just given the time that we have. But of course, you can always reach back out to us after today's webinar and to set up a deeper dive look into the integrated solution. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here shortly, and we'll get into the product demonstration. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at Turnkey's cFactory application. And as I said, this is really our development platform. It's how we build and support automation. As I get started here, I do want to note that we have a couple different flavors of cFactory. We have one that uses UFT as the execution engine, and we have another version of cFactory that is built on top of Selenium. And we have both because UFT we use for non-web applications, and typically for web applications we use Selenium. Today's application under test is Oracle EBS. It's an application that we have in-house that we typically do demos for. So in today's demonstration, I'll be using the cFactory that's built on top of the UFT execution engine, but do know that we do support Selenium as well. So I have cFactory open. I've got one of the initial screens in creating a sales order within Oracle EBS. And what we do within our solution is every screen that we need to interact with, we can open up cFactory and just tell cFactory to go ahead and learn the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to build an object for each of the different screens, and then we can assemble those objects into a test case. So once I go ahead and tell cFactory to learn the screen, I get a hand with the index finger sticking straight up, and I just go click anywhere on the application. I want to identify everything on this form, and I want to include just the default object types. cFactory is now going to analyze the application screen, identify all the different objects, the different types of objects or object classes they are, and then build what we call a component for this application screen. I'm going to go ahead and build one for the tab header, but we do identify the header, the footer, and all different sections of the application. And this is just not for Oracle EBS, but this can be set up for any custom application or packaged application. I'm going to go ahead and choose the tab header, and you're going to see cFactory automatically build component for me. The components are pretty basic, that can be understood by anybody. Really what we're doing is identifying the different objects on the screen, so we see customer order number, and we're going to see those same fields on the application screen. We assign the appropriate operation, or really the action we want to take against that object, and then what we're going to do is we're going to parameterize or create a parameter for each of the fields on the application screen. And we do that because where we provide data for our automation is actually within a data sheet, which we'll take a look at in just a couple seconds. And that data sheet is Excel-based, and we have it within Excel because we don't want only automation engineers to be able to work with our data sheets, but we want non-technical people, business users, anybody who might be involved in the testing process to be able to define the data that we want to test with, okay? So that's how we can look at any screen and any application, click on it, and we can identify exactly what's on the screen and build a component. And we create these small little components and then assemble them together in a test case. Now, quickly, I'm going to show you also our ability to update these components as the application changes. Instead of going in and making a change to the application, I'm just going to force a couple differences, right? I'm going to go ahead and delete order number and maybe just change the order of customer PO and date ordered. Okay, so I'm creating a hypothetical. I have a new release of this application, maybe applied a patch, a security update, whatever it may be. And so at this point in time, I know something's changed here, and I want to identify what's changed. So I'm going to go to update from application, and I'm just going to go through the same process. And literally the same process I went through in initially creating the component, but instead this time it's going to regenerate the component and then do a side-by-side comparison of what's changed. And what we'll see here shortly is a color coding of the old component versus the new component that it built. So we can see here the green, that's a new field or a new object on the screen. This is my old component. This is the new component. We can see order number has been introduced to this application screen. So I can say, okay, yep, I want to update my automation. I'm going to go ahead and update it there. Here, it's identified the order of operations, or spatially where objects are on the screen have changed. It's identified that. The order does matter. It's the order in which the automation gets executed, so I can go ahead and update that as well. So a very basic difference, but I hope it gets the point across that as your application changes, cFactory has the intelligence to identify how that application has changed. The other thing that cFactory can do, and I talked about not only being able to identify the automation and what's changed, but we also have something called Datasheet Manager. And this is where I can point at specific test cases. Let me go here to grid tools and then go to the order to cash process. It'll just take a second to come up. I can point at any test case, and what we'll do here is we'll take a look at the automation compared to the data that automation requires. And we can have cFactory go ahead and do this. These are all different data sheets that I had built. I can select one, and then I can do update. And it's going to go identify my data needs and how it's different from how the application has changed. So not only do we deal with the automation from a change management perspective, but we also deal with data as well. So that's cFactory, and that's our, that's how we build and support our automation. Now I'm going to quickly switch over to a different machine, and we'll start talking a little bit more about the integration between Turnkey's test automation framework with CA products, both Agile Requirements Designer as well as Test Data Manager. So where I'm going to start out here is, let me come here, is within our data sheets, okay? So it might look a little foreign to you here, but what I want to point out is we have these different gray sections. And these are all the components that we built out with cFactory, and they represent all the different screens that I may want to go to in creating this sales order within the Oracle application, okay? And Turnkey provides a product called Datasheet Creator, where I can go ahead and generate this sheet, which has no data, or we can default a little bit of data, but by no means can we robustly fill it out to include all the different iterations or all the different types of sales orders that I might want to create, okay? So we build this data sheet, And then what we do is we have the ability to export this data sheet, which you see this export right here. This is going to export this data sheet to an XML, which we can then read in using CA's Agile Requirements Designer, or ARD. So I would hit export here, and I know I'm kind of making this hypothetical because of the time that we have. But then I'll come over to ARD, and you see within Agile Requirements Designer, and just a little bit of overview here, and maybe Jeff wants to chime in as well. ARD one of its purposes is to be able to model out your business process, to identify all the different test cases or paths through a business process. So essentially what we're doing here is we're importing our data sheet, which contains the screens that we're going to execute within, in this case, Oracle EBS. And now you can see the flow that we're going to take through those screens through modeling that out. We do that by just clicking on the import here and importing in that XML file that Turnkey delivered. Once we model the process out, then what happens is we can send this model over to Test Data Manager. And Test Data Manager is over here. And essentially what I want you to look at are all these different tables here within Test Data Manager. They basically represent all the different application screens which we create tables or what within TDM, and the sum of all those tables is what we call an application pool. We can also take a look at the relationship between the tables, which is some other information. So here is where we send information over to TDM that says, okay, I have a header here, which is going to be a single row, but then I want to be able to identify multiple items, if you will, or multiple locations for a customer, whatever it may be. So not only do we send over all our data needs, but we also send over the relationships to TDM as well. And then within TDM, what we do, and in this case, this is that main tab that I built the component for, is we basically build data acquisition rules. So for customer number, you can see we're pointed at a test environment of my Oracle EBS system, and we're going into the customer table to identify customers based on certain characteristics that we want to go ahead and test. Okay, so this is the ability to identify test data within a test environment within Oracle EBS. Now, one of the things that Oracle does is it makes you identify an order number. So this is an example of synthetically generating data for tests. So what I'm doing is I'm creating an order with a prefix of TKS order, and then I'm creating some random number between 1,000 and 9,999. Now we can actually see this data resolved by clicking on the preview edit data. Okay, so now we can see the customers that we've identified, the order numbers that are synthetically generated, the customer numbers that relate to the specific customer, and then the specific different types of order types that we want to test in this book a sales order test case. And we do all this with TDM. We're both identifying data within the test environment and synthetically creating data. Now, as soon as we identify the data acquisition rules, we can come back to ARD and we can do an export TDM publish. So this is taking the data from the application pool within TDM and publishing it back to Turnkey's data sheets. So what we do is we do an export, and then if I come back to Turnkey's data sheet creator, we can see this import. We're going to import this export, if you will. Maybe a little confusing, but hopefully you get the point. And once we do the import, we're going to come back to look at our populated data sheet, and we're automatically going to populate this specific test case with the data that we've identified within TDM. So here we can see this is the navigation within Oracle. We're going to go to sales orders. Then within the main tab, our customer's AT&T, our specific order number, our customer PO number, the date ordered, the customer contact. All this information has been identified within TDM using data acquisition rules. And once again, that is the ability to identify existing data within your test environment or synthetically create data. And another thing that's nice is, one of the uses for TDM is actually before we even get to test automation, but it's, building out your test data or your test environment that you're going to use that data to test with. Well, since we create all that data with TDM, then we know where all that data is. So it's easy to create data acquisition rules to be able to pass that data to Turnkey's test automation framework. Just to wrap up, and hopefully it's relatively high level, but hopefully you get the point across. Turnkey provides a test automation framework where we're able to build and support automation. Once we build our test cases with Turnkey, we're going to generate our data sheet and then send that information over to CA or CA's ARD or Agile Requirements Designer. And really what we're doing is we're telling the CA products that this is the data that we need. And then we use the CA products to go ahead and model the business process and then automatically build that data pool so that we can define our data acquisition rules to pull the data out of our test environment or create it synthetically and pass it back to Turnkey. So now that we have the data necessary to go ahead and actually execute our test cases. And that's how the integration solution works. You know, if you guys are interested in a further demo, of course, we can go quite a bit deeper, and there's a lot to see from the automation perspective and a really robust set of capabilities between Test Data Manager as well as Agile Requirements Designer from a CA perspective. So that's the demo that I have for you. We just have a couple more slides, and we're going to go ahead and open it up to some question and answers. Okay, you know, we talked a little bit about Turnkey's automation framework. Jeff provided some insight into the set of products and features within Test Data Manager. And this joint solution, you know, provides real results. You know, you can, Jeff talked about an ROI calculator. I shared some case studies, and there's some real savings that you can realize here from, you know, if we're talking about every test cycle you run across your application portfolio. I think we covered in some depth, you know, the amount of savings there is from a maintenance perspective. And of course, that's also from a test automation perspective as well as a test data management, because in the end, you need both to be successful. You know, from test data, you know, based on the polling questions today, it's pretty apparent that most of the data you guys are creating is being done manually. So I think there's some definitely exciting stuff here to be able to not only mass data, but you know, subset data, synthetically create data, to really minimize the amount of time you're spending on manually creating data. I think overall, you're going to see a 30% increase in IT resource productivity. Turnkey makes building automation very easy. We don't need that highly technical resource to go ahead and build and support automation. More people or more resources that are participating in your agile teams can actually build and support automation. And overall, I think you'll see a dramatically increased test coverage, as well as, you know, in the end, what we're all looking for is increased application quality. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Kathy, and we'll start the question and answer session, part of the session.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Brad. Thanks so much. You know, I think just a quick summary too before the questions. We tackle the hard problems here, some of the most mission critical functions. And what we've been saying is a great automation solution without a great test data management solution is an incomplete solution. And you don't really need to put up with that in today's day and age. So let's see, Josiah, the questions here, do you read the questions off? Shall I read the questions?
Yep, I'll be taking over the questions from here. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Great.
All right, and just a reminder to the audience, before we do start Q&A, remember you can ask Jeff and Brad questions by typing them in the field beneath the panels and by clicking the submit button. We'll try to get through as many questions as possible live, but for those questions we're unable to answer during this time, some will be answered offline. And we do have a lot of good questions already in here. Let's start with this one. I think this was related to your demo, Brad. This person wanted to know, do we need to build a separate database?
Jeff, you want to take that, or you want me to?
Go ahead, Brad.
Okay. No, there's not a need to generate a separate database. I will say with Test Data Manager, you do create a smaller database there to do some of the synthetic data generation. Some of the features of TDM require TDM to have a database, but it's definitely not required. You can just point Test Data Manager at a a copy of production, if you will, and you can solely go with that database. So not required, but there are some features of Test Data Manager that do require it.
All right, great. Thanks for the explanation. This person wants to know, does cFactory do automatic test case generation as well?
It does not. There is a repository where the components that I built with cFactory are stored. And so once you build out that component library, basically a component for each of the different screens within your business process, you are then required to go ahead and essentially just drag and drop those in the order that you want them to be executed. So it's not automatic, but by no means is it very difficult or time-consuming to go ahead and build a test case.
All right, and we have a great question right here, a general question about Test Data Manager. This person wants to know, besides generating data, what else can Test Data Manager do?
Yeah, it's a good question. As I mentioned earlier, Test Data Manager is a fairly versatile tool. It provides the ability to do standard subsetting and masking. By the way, companies often are concerned about preserving referential integrity of their data when they pull it down from various databases. Our tool preserves that integrity between the tables that are on the database that you're pulling down. You can pull down very small subsets of databases, and you can mask that data very quickly. I also mentioned synthetic data creation, so the ability to generate data very quickly. Brad showed that in his demo. We can do, by the way, millions of rows of data, referentially intact data that corresponds to specific profiles that you set up when you want to generate that data. And then the other thing that I had mentioned was the test data warehousing and test data on demand. So a lot of times there's companies that have multiple teams. They all need to get access to the same data. And so we provide a test data warehouse where teams can grab the data, they can reserve it, version it, and use it when they need it.
All right, perfect. Next question here. This person wants to know, can the synthetic data creation feature create any data in any format?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, we haven't tested every single format, but the tool has a great deal of flexibility in terms of the profiles and the options that you can set up for data creation. It is expansive in its capabilities. I don't want to say that it'll create data for every single situation. There may be proprietary formats and things like that we don't have access to. But it is an extremely versatile tool, and if you have a situation where you want to try testing that data, we can certainly we provide a proof of concept where you can test the tool and make sure that it meets your needs in terms of the data that you need it to generate.
All right, thanks so much. This is a pretty specific question here. This person wants to know, how will cFactory handle objects that it's not able to recognize?
Yeah, so Turnkey provides a very adaptable solution, right? Obviously I can't say cFactory supports every application in the world because there's millions of them. But we provide the ability to extend our framework. And this is either from a UFT perspective or our Selenium solution. Both provide the ability to increase the object coverage of any application. So to give you an example, if we look at some custom web application, typically we're going to support 80, 90, 95% of the objects. Sometimes we do run into objects that we do not support, but we're able to extend cFactory's coverage of those objects. We typically do this in a pretty short amount of time, usually just a couple days. And it's kind of the configuration of cFactory, as part of the implementation to look at the application and ensure that all objects are identified. And once again, this is for both the Selenium and UFT solution.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks again for all the great questions. We're going to go with one more here, and again, remember, some will be answered offline. Before we do that, I did want to bring this slide up right here. So that's all the info you need about the personal demo that maybe Kathy can touch on as soon as we're done with this last question. So this person wanted to know, how long does it take to get this test automation up and running effectively?
I'll go ahead and take that, Jeff. Yeah, that's a really difficult question to answer because I don't know if you're talking about a single application or 140 of them. But just to give you an idea, it's an application that most people know is the application under test today. So Oracle EBS, obviously a very large application with typically a very large footprint. Typically, we have a really solid set of test cases built within the 4 to 6 week time frame. A lot of this time is spent really not building the automation, but really identifying test data, and that's where and why Turnkey has partnered with CA is to automate that process and to make it more manageable going forward. So for a single application, depending on how many test cases you have, it can vary, but for something like Oracle EBS, we typically build out a pretty robust test library, if you will, in about the 4 to 6 week time frame.
That's great. So thanks, Brad, for answering that. Jeff and Brad, thank you both for being here. The people on the phone, you're seeing our personalized demo slide, and what I want you to know there is that we can tell you about the benefits and results of what others are getting with these two pieces of software, these two solutions married together all day long, but really all that matters is whether we could make that kind of a difference in your organization. So what we want to do is offer you the opportunity to get a free assessment. And because we don't want to waste our time or yours, you can expect straight answers from us. Most likely, we believe we can make your life easier, but if we can't, we'll tell you that. So Turnkey Solutions is a CA technology partner and a CA services partner, so we can help you on both sides, and we have CA resources at the ready. We'd love to be able to talk with you, learn a little bit more about your particular situation, get your questions answered, and see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. So with that, I would like to thank both presenters for being here today, and I would like to thank everyone on the phone for having spent the last hour with us. Just a reminder, we will be sending out the recorded version of the webinar, and you will also be able to find it on the Turnkey website as well as the CA website. Thank you for joining today.
All right, thanks again. We hope to see you at a future event.